on embrace the chaos because it was a chaotic time and a lot of unknowns and uncertainties and stress and
Was it
just,
pumping? Was it easy? I
no,
mean,
no, it was not rainbows and ice cream and butterflies. No, so embrace that and trust yourself
okay.
because, she knew that she needed a change and it wasn't totally open and clear what that change was going to be, but looking back on it now, it was the best decision that could have been made. So I thank her for doing that and having the courage to do it because it was a scary time and it was, like I said, an uncertain time, but it definitely paid off in the long run.
Welcome to Teachers Transition Podcast, a show dedicated to supporting teachers transition in, through, and out of education. Grab your seat and let's talk about how to make your next transition a successful one.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. For wherever you're tuning, this is Alex Curtin, host of Teachers Transition. It's a podcast targeting those that are teachers. When I say teachers, those that have the innate ability to impact and help others to learn, whether you have that official title as a teacher. So this podcast is helping those that are looking to get into the profession, those that are already in the profession that's looking to transitioning to another role, which is a teacher leader or administrator or superintendent. And also, it's also targeting those that are looking to transition out of education. So I'm super excited to have a colleague and a buddy of mine that we work with together for a number of years. Her name is Samantha. And Samantha, thank you so much for joining us. And kind of tell us about yourself, your family life, where you live, if you want to share that.
Sure. Thank you, Alex, for having me. So great to be here. So my name is Samantha. I live on Long Island, New York. I've been in education for 25 years, roughly or so, mostly as an elementary education teacher. I have three kids at home. They range in ages from 19 to 11, so I'm busy both in and out of work. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. And can you kind of share, as far as teaching, did you stay, it's still in the elementary level? And did you stay in one grade? Did you fluctuate? Because, sometimes that's
Yeah.
a challenge.
Yeah, no, so I definitely fluctuated. I spent the first part of my career in upper elementary teaching fourth and fifth grade, and then I dropped down to more of the primary grades. I taught second grade for a while. Then I went back up to upper elementary and did fourth grade, and that's at that point when I kind of transitioned out of the classroom. But I also did spend some time in pre-K and first grade.
So you have a multitude of experiences and
Yes.
dealing with all kind of wonderful, challenging, smart, and talented young minds. So I want to cut to the chase. You transitioned out of education into ed tech, and can you kind of talk about that last year or what made you transition out?
Sure. So, I mean, it was definitely not an easy decision to come to, having been in education in the classroom for so many years at that point. I think it was about 15 at the time that I made that transition. But I had three kids at home, and one of them was a baby, and being in the classroom and being in that, you know, showing up every single day at 8 a.m. and being there till 3:30, and finding the childcare because my older two were in school, but my little one wasn't. So I needed, full-time daycare. And it was just that juggle of what can I do to still, maybe be part of education, but not have to be in the classroom every single day. So that's kind of when I made that transition out and I found a publishing company that I started to work for.
Okay. And that publishing company, like, what was that process from you? Did you kind of leave in the middle of the year? Did you make a decision in June? Like what? Because a lot of colleagues I talk to, they're trying to figure out when to make that leap, whether it's to finish the year and hope during the summer they get that job, say
Yeah.
later in education, see you later.
Yeah,
You know,
no, for sure. So it definitely, I wound up staying home with my little one for a little bit, and I was supposed to go back into the classroom, and I was supposed to go back in October. And it was during that summer when she was little, and the thought of having to put her in full-time childcare, I didn't go. So I was supposed to go back in October and I wound up not. So I kind of made the decision. Yes, I didn't start a year, but I was supposed to. So it was kind of like in the middle, but I tried to make it a clean kind of transition to not kind of mess things up for the people
Yeah.
that I worked for, but it turns out that I kind of did because I was supposed to come back and I didn't. So it was a difficult decision to make.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because so talk about, that process as far as, putting in your, 2 week or your termination notice. 'Cause I went through that and I thought I did it the right way and it was more than expected. So kind of talk about, your
Yeah,
principal's response and, all HR and the whole, because
yeah.
teachers got to really understand, it's not just saying bye-bye, it's a whole other steps you got to think about. So.
Yeah, 100%. So it was definitely not a moment that I wanted to have to go through because I was definitely, going back on something I said I would do because I said I was going to come in October and then I decided that that wasn't going to work for me and I did find this other kind of position to fall into. So, my principal was pretty understanding. She kind of wished that I made that decision, maybe August as opposed to September-ish when I did, just because then they would have found someone to fulfill my position from the get-go.
Yes.
HR, they weren't, they were kind of the same thing. They kind of wished that I made the decision a little bit sooner. So if there was any advice that I could give for anybody maybe thinking about that, maybe try to make that cleaner kind of transition as far as, not that you necessarily owe anything, but you never know where life is going to take you and you don't want to burn too many bridges. So you
Yes.
kind of want to make sure that you do the best that you can to be as professional as you can, even though you're doing what you need to do for you. You kind of
Yes.
want to make sure that you're kind of leaving yourself options in the future.
Yes. Yeah, very. That's a big takeaway for our listeners.
Mhm.
I learned that too as
Yeah.
well. Now, let's talk about you saw this position. How did you prepare in terms of your resume, the mindset, all the things to kind of help you go from I'm a teacher, I need to be with my baby,
Yeah.
I got to be a mom, I need to make sure those bills are paid,
Yeah.
the health
For sure.
insurance, I had a good
Hmm.
thing for a number of years, you know,
Yeah.
walk us through that whole process for you.
So to be honest, when I saw that I had to make a resume, I kind of just was a deer in headlights for a bit because I had
Mhm.
not even considered, looked at, drawn up a resume in years because like you just said, I was in this position for so long and I wasn't looking to necessarily transfer out of it. So I wasn't really keeping up to date on everything that I had done, all conferences or trainings that I had attended to kind of build me up a little bit.
Mhm.
So that took some time to kind of put that together to make it look like it was a true depiction of who I was. Because at first I put it on, I typed it up and I'm like, that looks like nothing because it looked just okay. You worked in the school district for 15 years, good for you. But what else did you do? Kind of thing.
Definitely.
So that was a little bit scary. And then to be honest, even just the interview process was a little overwhelming because I had not gone on an interview in so long. So I felt that I wasn't sure, if I was going to have what they were looking for at the time. So that was a little nerve-wracking. And then, at the time it was dating myself, but Zoom was just really coming out and they wanted to do like a Zoom conference with me because they weren't in New York, they were out of state. So all of these things, it was exciting because it was new and it was putting me in a place that I hadn't been in for so long. Like I wasn't nervous going to work. I woke up every day, I got dressed and I went to work and I did my thing and I taught my students, but this kind of like brought out about a little bit of like that nervous kind of excitement.
Sure, sure.
Um, so that was kind of nice to kind of feel that way for myself. And then making sure, like you mentioned before, I have this baby at home, I had to make sure that she was sleeping for some of those things so that way she's not, making noise in the background and things like that. But the position that I went into is a lot more flexible as far as being able to be home, at times also. But it
Okay.
was yeah, I mean it was a good process, but I definitely felt um that I wished that I would have maybe thought of those things prior to, like questions that I would be asked about my teaching career or my history or
Yes.
other things that I have done because I never really put myself in that mindset. So
Sure, sure, sure. And
yeah.
then And for those of you that are in like, so like New York, where we often stay in one position, you and I work together, what, 15, 16,
Yeah.
if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't move, I probably would have retired there, so
Yep.
you don't think about, revamping your resume or writing down all the things you've done because there's no need,
Right.
you have seniority, tenure, all that good stuff. So
Yep. Yep.
definitely, I had that same experience when I had to transition from one teaching in one state to another. It's like, what did I do the last 16 years?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So what would you say, how did teaching, well, let's talk about this role. Kind of give us the job description, the kind of responsibilities, you know.
Sure, sure. So I kind of it kind of changed for me over the course, or
Mm.
has changed over the course of the years. I started as basically a trainer for other teachers to kind of help them with programs. Certain programs that the publishing company was creating that the schools were adopting. I kind of came in and was able to train the teachers. And then I did move into the sales end of it. I kind of got transitioned from training into sales also. So then that part I was kind of selling the programs that the company was creating. So I traveled a bunch, which was kind of nice. Went to a lot of different places that I'd never been, but the best part of it has always been the flexibility. I was able to kind of choose what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So if I only wanted to work 2 days a week, that's all I did. So that way I was home
Yes.
with my kids and I only needed maybe 2 days of childcare. So it really, was a great thing for me because I was able to use my knowledge of a teacher because I was working for an educational publishing company. So I was able to use that knowledge of a teacher's mindset because they kind of needed that. So that certainly helped me for that. And then when it came to sales, it was even a no-brainer there because I know what a teacher is looking for. So I'm able to kind of pull out the points for whatever program I was trying to kind of get them to look at. I could pull up the positives for them that I know as a teacher that I would be looking for.
Sure. And that brings up another point that when I was transitioning, that one of my mentors mentioned about transferable skills. Because if you keep your resume, teacher, unfortunately, companies and ed sales, they might be able to say, okay, this is a teacher, we can pull those skills. But if you go, outside of ed tech, they might just say teacher, and not see all the amazing things we do. I mean, we're multitasking and so many things, not even including,
Yep.
monitoring student behavior, being a psychologist,
Yeah. Yeah.
teaching
Right. Everything.
curriculum,
Yes. Yeah,
um,
for
you
sure.
know, so can you talk a little bit about, any other transferable skills? Because then we have teachers that are looking to make that change. And then the biggest obstacle is how do I make my resume not say I'm just a teacher? Because then, as you know, with AI and technologies, a lot of these resumes are not even being seen by recruiters. They put it through
Yeah.
some kind of algorithm or some machine, and if it don't say those keywords,
Yep.
you wouldn't
That's
get
it.
an interview.
Yeah, it's true. So I would say one of the things that I didn't know that I had that was so good for me when I was doing this position was the ability to speak in front of peers. So one of the things that I had to do early on as a teacher was present at faculty meetings because
Yes,
sometimes being a newbie teacher, the principal's like, okay, you went to this conference, you're going to share it with everybody. And
exactly.
at the time, it would make me sweat and it would make me nervous, and I would not want to do it, but going through those different things really helped me in regards to this new position because I was standing in front of, sometimes it was 10 people, sometimes it was 50 people, presenting to them. So it kind of, I was taking that skill of public speaking, if you will, because it's not just, I could speak in front of students. I did that every day because they're little, they look at you differently, but when it's your peers, it's a whole different ball game. So that was definitely something that that I had that I didn't realize that I had that I
That's
transferred.
awesome. Awesome. Moving back into the role that you have, what are some of the biggest things you noticed, or you appreciate, or you took for granted, that in this role that you couldn't do in teaching? I know for me, the fact that I can just go to the bathroom anytime I want as a teacher, you're holding your bladder because always got students. I mean, sometimes
Yes.
little simple things like, oh wow,
Yeah.
I can actually go to the bathroom. I can
That
actually
is
eat lunch, you know.
that is really the number one thing, truly, because that, is being that elementary teacher where there's no time in between the classes, like you're right. That is something that, was a beautiful thing when I transitioned out, because you're right, you could just go whatever you want. But some of the other things was just like I was saying before, that flexibility. There's really no flexibility when you're a teacher. You come in, you have, I can speak for elementary. You come in, you have your same class all day long. You go through your core subjects with them. You do different things with them. You have your lunch, your recess. They go to their special, whether it be music or art or whatever, and it's pretty monotonous in the fact of what you're doing every single day, which there's a comfort to that because you kind of know what to expect, even though kids can be, they can go awry and they can do things, off task. But, as far as what your day-to-day job is, there's not much change to it. You kind of know what you're doing, kind of what your plan is for the day. Whereas what have enjoyed about the other position is that flexibility. And also, I didn't know what I was going to necessarily be doing every single day because I was traveling to different places. I was meeting different people. So just that social aspect too, because as a teacher, you're in your classroom with your students, kind of blocked away. Yeah, sure, you might see people when you're walking in the hallway, when you're taking your kids from one spot to another, but there isn't always that social aspect of it because you're kind of in your classroom. So having that ability to converse with other adults was kind of nice. And also, like I said, just I didn't always know where I was going to be going. So sometimes I had to fly to go to different places, which was nice. So that kind of change really kind of enlightened me a little bit. And just again, just that flexibility of like, for me, it wasn't a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of position.
Yeah.
It was, I could work that if I wanted to, but I didn't have to. And I was able to still, provide for my family and do things that I needed to. I wasn't, strapping myself in any
Awesome.
way.
Awesome. Okay, great insights. It makes me think of, I was talking with my wife the other day that, in the new role that I'm playing now, there was not much collaboration. Like you said, we're in our own classrooms. You might collaborate with, some other members of your team, but still,
Right.
most of the day it's you on your island with the kids, making sure, So
Yep.
can you talk about, having to now change gears to more collaboration and, working with other people and also,
Sure.
things like ROI, return of investment, other things that we don't talk about the classroom, we don't talk
Right.
about, and we don't have that demand of, hey, I got to make certain number of sales because, these trips are nice, but I'm
Yeah.
not going away for anything.
Right.
They're going to expect
You're
me to,
right.
either show
Yeah.
up, and you're a teacher. Okay, you should be able to speak to that, to that community.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, that was definitely a level for me of a little bit of stress that I never had before, as far as making sure I hit a certain quota. And there were times where I didn't necessarily make it and times that I did. So that was a new thing for me to kind of overcome, if you will. But it's a learning process. And, somebody new, they kind of give you that flexibility as you're starting, but then they do expect you to hit a certain level after a certain time, depending upon what you're doing. So thankfully there was that grace in the beginning because, it's a little bit difficult. But as far as like the collaboration, I enjoyed that as far as kind of working together, getting similar minds together to talk about, certain goals and what we wanted to present to certain schools. I really liked kind of the meeting of the minds, if you will, because we would talk about, where we wanted to go with certain districts that we were working in and what kind of plans we were going to have for them. So I kind of felt like my voice was heard a little bit more than when I was just in the classroom
Okay.
because, in a big building like I was in, your voice isn't necessarily heard, by everyone. Even if you have an idea for everyone, it's not
Yeah.
always welcomed, not that anybody's being mean or anything, but it's just not always welcomed. Whereas, in the sales and in the coaching part that I did, my voice, I was asked my opinion and it was valued, and that made me feel valued and important more so than sometimes you get it later on as a teacher, someone will give you that pat on the back, or a parent will say something to you that really you're like, oh wow, I really did do my job. But I feel like it's not always forthcoming when you're in the classroom as opposed to when you might be in another kind of position.
Okay, great. And what would you say, now in this role, what are the, of course, the meeting the quota, the sales, are there any other challenges that you would say, that you're navigating, you have navigated, with this different responsibility?
Sure. So, people can be difficult when you're working with people. Um,
No, really?
you know, I mean, working with kids can be difficult
Yeah,
too because they are strong-willed, some of them, but some people are reluctant to change,
yeah,
and that can be difficult to navigate when you're coming in. When I started, when I was doing like the training and the coaching aspect, and I was coming into schools and I was working with the teachers, for me, I was, happy and I was, this is great. This is what we're doing today. And, some teachers like, I don't want to do that. I don't like what you're showing me because it wasn't their decision for me to come in. It was, higher up for me to come in.
sure,
So,
sure.
that has definitely been something over the years that I feel, I've gotten a little bit better with too. I used to kind of get really nervous in the beginning, like, what am I going to do? This person is unhappy. So, you kind of try to work your way around it. You try to make them open their eyes a little bit, but some are
Mm,
reluctant no matter what you do. So for me, whether it be in that coaching or training or in the sales, it's kind of the same thing. People can just be resistant and they kind of have, they're quick with those questions or those comments back to you to kind of negate what you're saying. And you have to really be, on your toes as to what response that you're going to have. So, for me, it was making sure that I kind of knew what I needed to present and to be able to think of some of those hard questions that might come back at me to be a little bit more prepared, because that is definitely something that has been difficult over the years.
Rejection, and
Yeah.
I almost feel like, you're coming in judging me. I'm the,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. And you would think they would be a little bit more open because, we have the same blood. We're the same from the same cloth. We're teaching,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like we're
Mm-hmm.
administrating with these, these ideas that they have not, incorporated in their own classroom. And there's a disconnect, like, okay, you have these, I remember hearing, academic rigor. I'm like, that's a concept, but have kindergarten, like trying to like now
Yep.
let's weave that down to what I'm doing now. Like so,
Yep.
um, you know, how do you deal with that rejection internally? Because, like you said, you have to have a response, almost like a salesperson. When they say
Yep.
no, you have to have something so the sale is not, completely closed. But how do you navigate that internally? Because that I'm sure that creates wear and tear, just like a student,
Yep.
create
Yep.
wear and tear, with behavior. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, again, in the beginning, this is all, I feel like these are all things that were kind of like a learning curve for me. So I definitely got hit a lot harder internally in the beginning if schools didn't purchase, or I thought something went really, really well and everyone was really engaged and I thought, yes, this is going to go my way. And then it didn't. So you kind of feel like, what did I do wrong that
yes,
made them not that made them not choose me? But they're not choosing me. It's not really me. And it took me a while to realize that. Yes, I might have been the person to present it, but there were times where I was like, okay, what could I have done differently? Kind of like even when you're teaching a lesson in the classroom, like, what can I do differently to make this a little bit better? So I kind of did that, with every presentation that I did that maybe didn't go my way. I would think, okay, what can I do next time to maybe make it better? But I stopped thinking that it was me, because if I kept doing that, then I was going to completely be defeated and deflated. And it's not me. Sometimes it's even though they liked what I was doing with them and they were engaged and they were asking questions and everybody seemed happy, at the end of the day, sometimes there's something else that just kind of speaks to them a little bit more. Not that they disliked what I was trying to show them, but
yes.
there was something else that just kind of met the needs of their school a little bit more than what I had for them. So it took a while for me to realize it's not me. So I can't just
Yes.
internalize it too much that I'm being rejected. It's just
Yes.
what I'm trying to sell them isn't what they're exactly looking for. So,
Great.
yeah.
And in that same kind of vein, how long do you think it took you to kind of get assimilated, to your new role, assimilated to that ideology? It's not me, and that okay, this is the position I am, and that this is part of the territory. Opposed to thinking, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have loved teaching, or I'm not good at this. At what point, kind of talk us through that journey where you say, okay, oh, I can do this. I'm not bad. I feel like this is somewhat comfortable.
Yeah. So, it was definitely a little bumpy in the beginning because again, I'm learning how to do this new position. I'm so used to being a teacher to little kids. So like here I am doing this completely different position. So I would say for me, like looking back on it now, I would say within 6 months, I started to be like, okay, I get, the first 6 months were definitely a huge learning curve. But by 6 months in, I felt a little bit more confident because I'd gone through so much already that I was like, all right, I just have to be more confident in myself and what I'm doing. And the next 6 months is going to go even better. So I kind of made that turning point shift around that 6 month period to say, okay, this now I've learned what I'm supposed to do. I've had a couple of failures as far as, being rejected and things like that. But now let's take this and move forward. So between that 6 months and a year, I saw an even bigger change in myself and my level of, confidence in what I was doing and my comfortability with it as well.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say for anything new, you have to give it at least, for me, I feel you have to give it at least like 6 months because I don't think you're really giving it a taste for what it is
Sure.
a month in or 2 months. And I feel like you have to go through, a season or two to be able to know, to be able
Sure.
to know if it's right for you.
And during that 6 month cycle, or maybe further over, have you had any moments where you said, what did I do? I should have went back to,
I definitely did. There were definitely times where I was like, I don't know what I just did to myself. Like, because you take a little step back, it's kind of like, definitely pulling yourself back from where you'd been and now you're trying something new and I'm spending this time trying to learn everything that I have to learn and do all of this stuff and I'm like, wait a second, I knew what I was supposed to do when I was teaching. Like I had this predictable kind of job where I knew what I had to do every single day. Like why am I stressing myself out? I had things all over my living room floor, my dining room, like that I was planning things out for myself as far as like learning all of these things. And I remember one day looking at it going, what am I doing? I'm not like, I felt like a new teacher, even though I wasn't a teacher at the time, but that's what I felt like. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I have 3 kids. Like, what am I doing to myself? But, in the long run, it was beneficial, but I definitely had those moments of second guessing myself.
I no, I appreciate the transparency because these are all real things that I think people that are transitioning, whatever stage they're on, it's important to consider, and also it's important that someone has already trailblazed that path, so I'm not just going in, without being informed. Everyone's
Right.
experience
Sure.
is not going to be 100% the same, but it's good to know. Hey, maybe I
Yep.
should consider, because I've had some colleagues, June they quit and they forego their contract and thinking I'm just going to smile or show up and get another job, and then
Yep.
they're like, have my contract back, or some people
Yeah.
that, a week later they got a job and they're rocking it, so
Yeah.
I think it's important to hear those stories, and concerning stories and what advice would you give someone that's looking to transition? Because, we're in February,
Yeah.
June is coming around the pike and, often people make decisions in between contracts. What bit of advice would you give someone that's on that, fence or thinking
Yeah,
about?
sure. Sure. So I would definitely say do your research as far as what you're looking to possibly do for yourself and, make sure it's something that's going to work for you. And, it's old saying, but trust your gut. You'll know if something is right for you. This was for me, this was something that kind of like just spoke to me. And I found it on like a Craigslist ad. Like I was just looking for something and it was back when Craigslist was really popular. I'm like, I don't even know what I was doing, but it called to me that it was maybe for me. And that's why I just took that leap of faith. I just got the guts and I did it. And also anything that is worthwhile is going to be difficult too. Like it's going to be, if it's too easy, then maybe we weren't supposed to do it. I feel like sometimes I feel like if there's that little bit of like that push and pull and that little tug, you know, that's going to speak more to what you're stepping towards. So kind of trust your gut, do your research, and just, give it time. Whatever it is that you're transitioning into, it's not going to be perfect. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, but it can definitely be more refreshing on the other side. It depends on where you're going, but you just have to make sure that you give it time. Don't give up on something so easily. If you're feeling like this is something that you need to do, meaning transition out of the classroom, that's coming for a reason. If you've gotten to that point that you're making that decision, there's a reason for that. So kind of explore it, do what's best for you, and then just give it some time, because sometimes it really is worth it to come out of the classroom.
Great advice. Can you talk about the importance of networking in terms of transitioning?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important. Like, you have to put yourself out there, I mean, reach out to anyone and anyone that you might know, go on different, sites and things that have stuff. Like I said, I found mine on Craigslist. I didn't even think that they posted positions on there, but, kind of put yourself out there and gather your skills, like we were talking about before, to make sure that you know what you have available. And you might not even know what you have available within yourself, but it's definitely, you have to make yourself vulnerable a little bit as far as, putting yourself out there.
And, when you started years ago, Craigslist to now, do you think your approach to find another ed tech job, would it be the same now? And I kind of mentioned this because of what I've noticed, there are more people that are on LinkedIn, and a
Yes.
couple CEOs that are posting ed tech positions, and also with COVID and
Hmm.
a lot of positions that that work from home.
Yep.
Then what I've seen, it seems like if I'm going for a position that might be in New York, I'm not competing with just people from New York. I'm competing with every other state,
Right.
because if it's
Yeah.
working from home, everyone. So
Yeah.
any strategies for people that are going for positions that they have the flexibility for the work from home, and they know the pool of people that are going for positions is much greater because of the ability
Yeah.
to work from home.
Yeah, like, I mean, like I was saying before, Indeed is definitely more popular. Indeed and also LinkedIn are definitely more popular now for people to kind of branch and network. And, as far as like LinkedIn, make sure you make those connections, reach out to the different people, connect with them, ask to connect with them, to see what they're looking for. Take a look at the business that they're running or whatever it is that they're doing, see the kind of people that maybe that they're hiring, look through and research, because you're right, there are a lot of people in that pool, and you want to kind of make yourself the unique one. Find something within yourself that's going to stand out amongst those people. So my best advice for that is to definitely kind of see their history, like, who works for them. Take a look at their tree, on LinkedIn. See, look at all the different types of people to see, does this look like me, or does this not look like me, in regards to who you are as a person, what you can offer, what the positions entail, so that way you can kind of, again, like I said, find the part of you that's unique, that's going to stand out.
It's awesome. And now that you've been in ed tech for a little while, where do you see the future? Do you see, in terms of, is there growth more for teachers looking to transition out, or it's just we're kind of hit a stalemate, and some administration jobs where the principal's been there 20 years, they're not looking to retire, and it's not.
Yeah.
Are there openings? Are there opportunities? Not only in ed tech, but maybe other
Yeah.
industries that people are not considering to transition as a teacher?
I think that even since I began, there's even more opportunity because of, like you mentioned before, what COVID has done as far as, giving that ability to have people necessarily not in your state working for you.
Yeah.
So I do think that there are so many more things, probably more than I'm even aware of, as far what teachers can do. Because there's so much more remotely that can be done as well. So I do think that there's more growth for people. For me, where I am, I know that I'm able to kind of move up the ranks a little bit. Whereas a teacher, you're the teacher or you're the administrator. There's no really like in between for a teacher. It's, you move up in your steps and whatnot with your contract and everything else. But, with this position, you actually like move up in your position. Like, your position kind of changes, your responsibilities change a little bit. You get a little bit more responsibility, maybe even a little bit more flexibility than what you had. So I definitely feel like there's more growth, even more so now, just because of, you can access people from all over the place. So they need they need a lot of people, I think.
Uh, Definitely great advice. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you to speak to the Samantha, now to the Samantha that, was trying to find childcare. Like, one, speak to the growth and kind of speak to her and say, encourage her to take that leap. Because I think some people, they see themselves where they are now and they can't envision 5 years later where they are. So
Yeah.
kind of, if what would you say to Samantha, younger kids,
Yeah, yeah, no, and embrace the chaos, I'll say to her, because it was a chaotic time and a lot of unknowns and uncertainties and stress and
was it
just,
pumping along easy? I
no,
mean,
no, it was not rainbows and ice cream and butterflies. No, so embrace that and trust yourself because, she knew that she needed a change and it wasn't totally open and clear what that change was going to be, but looking back on it now, it was the best decision that could have been made. So
awesome.
I thank her for doing that and having the courage to do it because it was a scary time and it was, like I said, an uncertain time, but it definitely paid off in the long run.
Awesome. And I want to thank you because, it was through, your, walking through that path that also, among other people empowered me to make that step as well. Cause, it's scary.
Yeah, it is
I tell
scary.
people all the time, and this is kind of, I was having conversations with my wife, about this and she's like, you should start a podcast. So I often talked about in education, it's it's a highway where there's only two exits. It's either you
Yep.
become an administrator
Yep.
or you retire or
Are you
you
retired?
go, or
Yeah,
maybe another exit, you quit and
you leave. Yeah.
work at Walmart.
Right, right.
you because they don't see your skills. It doesn't matter you have two or
Yep.
three college degrees,
Yep.
masters plus 60, you're
Yep.
just a teacher. So
Yep. It's true. It's true. It's
yeah.
true.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I know that there have been so many valuable insights, and I appreciate your time. And, I'm hoping that, some of my listeners will reach out to you on LinkedIn or, just,
Yeah.
take some of those things that to kind of help them, figure out a path to, to go from where they are now to where they want to be. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.